Good morning, students. My name is Tad, and I'm going to be doing your Sunday school lesson this morning. Now, as we are looking over the Sunday school lesson, I guess really the first question that we have is just as we kind of branch into this, is for me to kind of throw out a question for you. Have you ever noticed that it is way easier to actually think about doing something than it is to do it in reality? Maybe as you've been in school, you started the semester and you said to yourself, I'm going to take the time, I'm going to study really hard, I'm going to do all my homework, I'm not going to be late on any of my assignments, and you really went in really truly, thinking that's how I'm going to be this semester. I'm going to get all A's, I'm going to do all the right things. But then as the semester wears on, or as your classes wear on, things happen, life gets a little busy, and you find yourself, maybe not doing all your reading, or maybe you're not turning in all of your homework on time, or maybe you're just kind of half doing it and you kind of get behind and all, and it just kind of goes and goes and goes, right? Now, you had the intention to do it, right? You really wanted to do your lessons, you really wanted to be on top of it, but when it came to reality, right, when it came to actually living it out, it was way more difficult than you ever thought it would be. And as we look into this week's lesson in the Bible, we're going to see that that's kind of the circumstance where we find ourselves in, and specifically where David is going to find himself. Excuse me, my contact is going crazy on me there. Anyhow, but this is where we find ourselves sometimes, and this is where David finds himself, where what he has to decide in the story is, am I really going to trust God, right? Am I really going to trust God, or am I going to do it my own way? And of course, we do that exact same thing as we live in the world. We're going to find, and you're going to find, just like I've found, that it's way easy to say that you're going to trust God. It's easy to say that everything I do is going to be for God and for His glory. But whenever the rubber hits the road, whenever things become more challenging, that's when we really see what we're made out of. And that's where we see exactly what our faithfulness to God is made out of. And so this is the passage that we're going to look at. If you have a Bible, you can continue on in 1 Samuel chapter 24 is where we're going to be. 1 Samuel chapter 24. Leading into the story so far, we know that Saul is currently the king of Israel. He was put there, but God has anointed David to be the next king. Saul, the current king, has found out about that, and he is not pleased, right? And of course, he's not pleased because that means that if David's going to be the next king of Israel, then his son Jonathan isn't. And so it's really, he knows that his line is about to end with him. And so what he's wanting to do is get rid of David so that hopefully his line would continue on. So he has been chasing David. David's on the run, and he's got his men with him, his faithful guys. And David is hiding in a cave, and Saul has been off in battle, but he's come home, and he's like, okay, let's pick back up this search for David so I can get rid of this guy. So if you have your Bible, let's look for just a moment at 1 Samuel chapter 24, and I'll read for us verses 1 through 4. And this is what it says. It says, "Now when Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines, he was told, saying, Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men from all of Israel and went to seek David and his men in front of the rocks of the wild goats. He came to the sheepfolds on the way where there was a cave, and Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the inner recesses of the cave. And the men of David said to him, Behold, this is the day which the Lord said to you, Behold, I am about to give you your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it seems good to you. Then David arose and cut off the edge of Saul's robe secretly." So here's the story, right? As we mentioned before, Saul is after David. David is out running, and he is actually hiding in a cave. Now, and so Saul is coming after him. He has 3,000 men, and Saul, when the passage here says relieve himself, what it means is he has to go use the restroom, right? And so just imagine for a second, right, that here you are a wanted criminal, right? You didn't do anything wrong, but you're still a wanted criminal, and the king or a police officer is coming for you, and you've decided that what you're going to do is you're going to hide in a cave. Now you're hiding in the cave, and as luck would have it, right, the police officer steps into the very cave that you're hiding in, right, so that, right, he can relieve himself, right, relieve himself. And so it comes in, and so there you are, and you have to ask this question: what am I going to do, right? This guy's after me. He's after me for no good reason, right? He thinks it's a good reason, but it's absolutely false, right? What do I do? So not only are you thinking about that question, but your buddies are with you, right? Your friends are with you, and they're saying, hey, this is the day, right? You can end this thing right now. All you've got to do is just take this guy out. If you take this guy out, then you're going to be the next king, right? And that's what they're telling David here, right? And you can just see how tempting it would be. And we could see how what's happening here is David's faithfulness to God being tested, right? You can see where David has a choice. One, do I look at the circumstance? Do I look at the situation? Do I listen to my friends? And do I say, you know, everything is lining up just as it needs to line up for me to be king, so I should just go ahead and kill this guy so that I can take my spot as king of Israel, right? So there's his one option. Or does he sit and does he think to himself, you know, I'm going to be king, but I need it to be done God's way, right? Whenever I become king, I don't want it to be because of something that I've done. I don't want it to be because of something where I've killed Saul, right, or where I've started a war, or any of those kinds of things. I want to become king in God's way, not in my own. And this is the difficult circumstances that we're going to face and that you're going to face in life, is that when the rubber hits the road, are you going to look at the situation, and though everything looks like you should move, and though everything looks like a certain action should be taken, are you going to take the time to pause and ask, God, is this what you would have me to do? God, am I doing the right thing the right way at the right time, right? And the right thing is, am I doing the right thing here, right? By attacking and killing this man. And God hadn't told David to kill Saul, right? So no, that wouldn't be doing it the right way, doing the right thing. Is he doing the right thing, right? No, because he would start this insurrection. He probably would have started a civil war, right? And then would it be the right way? No, he needed to wait on God's timing. And so that's what David chooses to do. So instead of going and killing Saul, even though he's right there in a vulnerable position, right next to David and his men in the cave, he goes up and he cuts off a corner of Saul's robe. All right, so let's move on with the story as it goes. Let's look at verse 8 here, and then I'm going to read verses 11 through 15. So verse 8 says this. So now afterward, David arose. So this is Saul. He relieves himself in the cage, right? And in the cave, right? He relieves himself. He goes out. Now after Saul goes out, verse 8. Now afterward, David arose and went out of the cave and called after Saul, saying, My Lord the king. And when Saul looked behind him, David bowed with his face to the ground and prostrated himself. Verse 11. Now, my father, see the edge of your robe in my hand. For in that I cut off the edge of your robe and did not kill you. Know and perceive that there is no evil or rebellion in my hands. I have not sinned against you, though you're lying in wait for my life to take it. May the Lord judge between you and me, and may the Lord avenge me on you. But my hand shall not be against you. As the proverb of the ancient says, out of the wicked comes forth wickedness, but my hand shall not be against you. After whom has the king of Israel come out? Whom are you pursuing? A dead dog, a single flea? The Lord therefore be judge and decide between you and me, and may he see and plead my cause and deliver me from your hand. Right? And what we see here is this, right? So David leaves the cave, Saul leaves the cave, and after he goes out, and you can only imagine, probably after a distance, because just think for a second here, David's initiating something. Saul doesn't know that he's there, but he's after David to kill him, right? So he probably lets him get a little distance, and he comes out of the cave, and he says, My Lord, King Saul. And so Saul turns around and sees there's David in the very cave that he went into to relieve himself, right? And David holds up this corner of his robe and he says, King, look, you were delivered into my hand. I could have killed you. I could have taken you out, but I didn't, right? Please understand that I have nothing against you, that I'm not after your kingdom, that I am not after your life, that I am not trying to start an insurrection. No, King, I am just your servant, right? And I am the servant of the Lord. Now, here's something interesting about this as we come across these circumstances, is that you'll find yourself sometimes in difficult places in life where you're going to have to make the move. See, Saul had already moved on, and so once again we have David here, and he's in he's in a pickle, really, if we can use the old phrase, in a pickle, right? Saul's gone, and so David's there with his men. He's cut off his robe, and he has to ask himself, right? The easy thing to do would be to let Saul just continue on, going off, looking for him and for his men, right? And this thing would have just kept going on and on and on and on. But David says, I'm trusting the Lord here, and so I'm going to go out, and I'm going to see if I can end this conflict. And so he walks out of the cave, he holds up, right, the robe, and he says, look, I could have ended this, but I have nothing against you. I know you're after me, but I am not after you, right? David takes the initiative to end, right, this argument. And we as believers, sometimes in the difficult moments of life, we need to take the initiative to end the arguments and the conflicts where we find ourselves in. Because here's what we're ultimately looking for in this life. It's not for an ease of life. It's not for wealth. It's not for fame. It's not to be known by people, but rather our end game in this life is to glorify God, right? It's to live at peace with our Lord and with our Savior, and to live at peace with this rest of this world. And so what David does, he says, I'm going to take the initiative here, even though this doesn't make sense, even though I shouldn't reveal myself to Saul, I'm going to go out and say, look, Saul, I know you've got something against me. I don't have anything against you. Can I end this now? Look, I had a chance, but I'm not going to. I hope this proves to you that I'm not who you think I am. My motives aren't what you think they are. I'm your servant, and I'm a servant of the Lord. So let's keep moving here in verses 16 and 17, and then 20 through 22. Verse 16. And when David had finished speaking these words to Saul, Saul said, "Is this your voice, my son David?" And then Saul lifted up his voice and wept. He said to David, "You are more righteous than I, for you have dealt well with me, while I have dealt wickedly with you. You have declared today that you have done good to me, and that the Lord delivered me into your hand, and yet you did not kill me. For if a man finds his enemy, will he let him go away safely? May the Lord therefore reward you with good in return for what you have done to me this day. Now behold, I know that you will surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel will be established in your hand. So now swear to me by the Lord that you will not cut off my descendants after me, that you will not destroy my name from my father's household." David swore to Saul, and Saul went to his home, but David and his men went up to the stronghold. See, here's what we see here, that David has a higher standard, right? That David isn't just going after bloodlust. He's not after fame. He's not after power, right? He's not after his own personal glory. David's higher standard is that the Lord is glorified. David's standard is that grace is going to be extended, right? And since David extends this grace to Saul, what does Saul do? He responds in kind, and he says, David, you're only proving to me that you will one day be king of Israel. And so David, since you've extended me this grace, please extend me more grace, and promise me that the rest of my family, you won't take them out, you won't murder them, right? Because that was a thing that kings would do. When a new family would come in line, they would try to take out as many of the other family as possible, right? So that no one would have a case to usurp them and take the throne back. And Saul says, David, please swear to me that you will not destroy my name. And David says, absolutely, right? And he swears to him. And he goes in. See, David extends grace, right? He extends grace when he doesn't take Saul's life. He extends grace when he says, look, I'm only following the Lord here, and this is what the Lord has told me to do. And what David is here, we would say that David is kind of a precursor to Christ who's going to come in. Jesus is a new David, right? And Jesus extends this grace to all of us as well, right? And all of us are his enemies. All of us are against him, right? And because of that, the wrath of God is against us. But Jesus comes and he gives grace and he dies on the cross so that you and that I can be saved, right? And so that we can be made right with the Lord, right? And that grace is extended to us. Now, just in closing, I'd like to ask you just this one question to think about in your life, right, as things become difficult, right? Whenever you come to the moment where what you say you believe actually has to be lived out, right? And here's what you need to think about this week. And maybe text me or see me on Wednesday night if you come through there. But it's this, is how does the fact that you're a Christian, right, enable you to offer grace to others? How does the fact that you're a Christian enable you to respond to conflict differently than other people, right? How are you different than this world because of your faith. See, David had the opportunity to go in and see the cards all laying out and just take care of things all on his own. But instead, he chose to wait and to pause and to let the Lord handle it, right? He didn't say, I'm just going to do this because I can. He said, Lord, you handle it. And so the Lord handled it. He goes out, and then David takes the initiative, and he steps up and he says, look, you were delivered into my hand, but the Lord is going to take the action. And then Saul responds, and he says, David, I know now you truly will be the king. And so with you in your life, how will you allow the Lord to take control? How will you say, I can handle this situation, but it's up to the Lord. It's up to God to do this. How does your perspective change due to the fact that you're a believer? And so, guys, I hope you have a wonderful week. Hope you have a happy 4th of July. I actually mentioned Wednesday night earlier, but this week we won't be having Wednesday night out in the pavilion due to the 4th of July. But I will be picking that back up on the 8th. Next week, I think Chris is up to teach, and it's going to be an awesome lesson because he always does a wonderful job. So you guys have a great week. Text me or shoot me an email. My number is 501. Well, never mind. If you need my number, just email me and we'll do that. I forgot. This is on the YouTube. Sorry about that. All right. Anyhow, we will see you guys later. Have a wonderful week. Bye.